and I was introduced into the life of prostitution, where I actually prostituted. And then one day this guy came to me. He goes, "Why are you prostituting? Why don't you just be a madam?" And from that day on, I began to be a madam. I was a madam all over the world. I was very known. You want a girl? I would give it to you. I even bought people. I would dress them up, fix them up, and put them on the streets for sale. And my house in Michigan had been raided 3-4 times. I was actually indicted for pimping and pandering and white slavery. But in the midst of it, God brought me through that too. The paperwork disappeared. When they raid your house and they find guns, automatically, with no serial number, you go to prison. But I'm sitting here. God gave me another chance. But I would go to church, and out for the money that I made from the prostitutes, I actually would tithe. Mm-hmm. I would tithe. So I left the world alone for a little bit, and that wouldn't do it because I was used to fast money. And after that, I began to date drug dealers, still a madam, still pimping, actually teach people how to pimp. That's how deep it was. And you name it, at the age of 19, I had everything. I mean, I've never worked a day in my life. And from there, I moved to Georgia. And Georgia is the life where I encountered being a lesbian, even though it started when I was really young. But this is where I actually had relationships with women here in Georgia. And then this is the city where I actually became a prostitute to the millionaires. You had the right amount of money, I would go with you. But the Bible is exactly right. You do reap what you sow. Exactly what it is. I've had 8 abortions. I've tried to commit suicide. I was molested when I was 5. I was raped when I was 14. I lived the life of a homosexual where I would date women and just do all kinds of things because I knew that they wasn't all together. I took advantage of it. And then after that, I never forget this day. I got a phone call. Actually, I was headed home. And I had a cleaning business. I would cover up for everything that I did. When people see me in the streets, they never knew what was going on. They would think that she's just this designer. She's just this lady that cleaned houses. But behind closed doors, I was doing any and everything that it took to pay the mortgage and to keep the lifestyle going, and etc. Even not only that, neglecting my child. I would buy him Gucci, Prada, but he wouldn't see me for 2-3 weeks, and I would come home, drop the money off, and go back out of town again. So I met this guy, and he called me. He said, "You want to clean this man's house?" I said, "Sure, I'll clean it." I went to this house. Right before that, I was having dreams about AIDS. Warning does come from before destruction. I've had 4 dreams back to back. I've seen it clear as day. God warned me first. And I remember in November, I said, "Lord, if my AIDS test come back negative, I wouldn't have intercourse anymore." Well, 2 days later, I was right back at it again. So after that, I kept going and kept going, just kept being promiscuous, kept sleeping with women, would carry women to church with me. You name it, I've done it. That particular day, I went to this man's house. Satan never had new tricks, just new faces.
Right.
At nighttime, he examines you while you sleep. So he brought me someone with a 28,000 square feet house. He knew what I like. Mm-hmm. And I slept with the man 3 times. I call it the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. The first time I slept with him, I felt like I died. That's the honest God truth. The second time I slept with him, I felt like I died again. The third time I slept with him, I felt like I died again. Well, I didn't talk to him no more. God was pulling me away from him. I was crying because I was one of those young ladies where, believe it or not, I had low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And after that, God pulled me away from him. But I kept going, pulling back at him. So I left him alone. And in this man's house, I seen a bunch of medicine. And I said, "What was that?" He said, "It's for cancer." I took it as it was for cancer. And after that, Lord behold, I'll never forget, I got a phone call June the 15th, which is Father's Day. And I was with my boyfriend. And they said, you haven't heard? I goes, no, I haven't heard. They goes, you watched the internet? I goes, no. They said the man you slept with had AIDS. My heart dropped. All I could do was replay back on all the times I pimped people, all the times I slept with people's husbands while they were laying in the bed with their wives, and I thought it was funny. How I used people to get money to pay bills. Every lie I've told, every abortion I've done, that's all was playing back in my head. And I was like, Lord, I know I'm going to die a horrible death. And at that particular time, that night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned. I was in the bed with my boyfriend. I couldn't sleep. He didn't understand what was going on. I took a trip to Santa Barbara, California to an event with someone's husband then. I didn't stop there. I kept going. And I did something that I shouldn't have done. But God knew that it was over. See, he didn't allow me to go to prison because I was in prison in my mind already. But he allowed the HIV to take place to stop me in my tracks. At that particular time, I began to lose weight. I began to go through my house, measuring my arm, just losing my mind. My son don't know what's going on. One day, I got in the car. I had my son in the car. I went to the man's house, and I looked at him. I said, do you have AIDS? He said, no. When he turned around, this is the God, heaven, truth. There was something on his head with two horns. Said, I got you now.
Jesus.
I got in the car. I went back home. I began to cry. I began to weep. And I called up a lady that's a pastor. And I said, I'm not going to make it. 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 That's all I kept saying. She came to the house. When she came there, it was my son's 13th birthday. I was so in distraught because all the enemy kept saying was, oh, I got you. I got you. I went to take the AIDS test, and it actually came back negative. But let me show you how God works. I went to visit a lady, and she began to pray over me, and she told me some things that nobody knew but her and the Father. And after that, I went home. I just began to pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and yell out to God, like yell out to him. This particular day, I began to just start spitting, and I didn't understand why. God came to me in my dreams and told me this exact thing. I healed you of HIV. I want you to know this. Sin ye no more, or a far worse thing will come upon you, and you better go tell what I've done.